Thank you so much for tuning in to Simply Being. I'm here with KDigitals, and we're going to talk a little bit about the modeling, photography industry, and just how it plays out, and how, moving here to San Diego, I even hear people say, there we don't need any more models and photographers and DJs because literally, like, it feels like everyone's trying to do that. But I think it's important to tune into who's doing it with positive intentions and who's doing it based on their passion and like their desire to, spread a message. And I'm glad you're here because I personally have a lot of questions myself. And I think it's important to, talk to people who have been in the game and who just understand, what it's about. So I want to start with asking you, like, what really drew your passion to photography and, why you're here today with
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, for sure. So I guess like the main context, I like making art, right? I think when I was younger, I wanted to make video games. Didn't really happen. Didn't know how to get into that. And then in high school, I was in a couple bands, and I actually wanted to be in a band. Like that was my thing. I wanted to be a rock star, play guitar, like do all that. That didn't really work out. I was like in a couple bands, got kicked out of a few bands, and
Mhm.
then it just came to a point where it just felt like a lot of work to make it happen, and I just kind of dabbled in other places. Eventually found my way into photography because of a neighbor of mine who would just like take me on shoots with them, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of standing there watching, but I thought it was cool. And then when I would take photos, like, oh, this looks pretty cool. I think I could do more of this. And then it kind of took off from there. That became the route I kind of ran down.
Mhm. Wow, that's honestly amazing how you can literally like not expect something and then
Hmm.
boom, it becomes something that you actually like work on for a long time.
Hmm.
So what we were talking about earlier a little bit, and I want to obviously like bring that up here is like, how do you choose like who you want to shoot and like who you
Mm.
feel like you vibe with based on social media? Because I obviously like, in my own head, sometimes I struggle because like we said, the trend now is like, you show it all on your social media
Hmm.
or you do it that on OnlyFans, but it's like at some point you're like just showing everything to everyone. And I feel like, as a photographer, just as well as a model, you have to make that decision of like the route you want to go.
Hmm.
So, how do you choose that? Like, how do you make that decision?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what you're what you want, right? Like, obviously, I think like the OnlyFans thing is a business for a lot of people. When you think about it, some
Or
people like seems like they just like doing it. Like it's a vulnerable thing, but it's also like some people are just into it, and then some are doing because that's gets their name out there and it's marketing, right? Like, um, but sort of like a photographer standpoint, right? Like for me, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. Well, let me pull the context back. So in terms of like what I'm looking for and trying to do is I like doing stuff that looks like it's a rock star vibe, right? But in the world of fashion, right? 'Cause there's like high fashion stuff, which is very voguey and out there, and it's cool, but sometimes it's maybe too artsy.
Mhm.
But then like the OnlyFans stuff, one, I'm probably like too shy for that. It feels I would want to do something like that, but also feels like oh, I don't know, right? Like that's once I do that, what that's gonna if that's gonna make me change all my focus, cause just an experience.
Yeah.
Um, but if you could find somewhere in the middle, now it's cool because you have this like high fashion rock star vibe, but it's like a little bit of like sex appeal in there, right? And
Mhm.
to me, if you can sprinkle that in, but still make it look like something that would go in a magazine, that's cool. But that's also hard because it's really easy to like, okay, this shot definitely is going to get likes because of the content and the vulnerability. But it's also there are very few people that have a unique style in that, like orangutan and stuff.
Mhm.
And if you can't get your own style, you're just like everyone else, right? And I don't
Yeah.
think people will really like you as a photographer. They'll just like your page because if you're talking about Instagram, because they just like the content, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're probably there more for the models than they are for you.
Mhm.
And as someone that's trying to build like a brand and a business around that, I want to do something that's going to allow me to do more than just that. Um, but also that's not what I just want to do, right? So there's that part. This is a long answer. Appreciate your
Mm.
patience. Yeah. So there's
No,
that context, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's all
So
about opening that conversation. Like what I'm hearing from what you're saying is like, it's important to understand what it is that you want to bring to the table. And I think that goes to show with like photographers and models, like instead of thinking, okay, what's going to get me the most likes or what's going to get me the most people to like my page, it's more of what's going to really show what I'm about and like what I want to portray to the world, and then
Mhm.
going from there. Because I feel
Yeah.
like, for myself, sometimes, I'll see different photos and I'm like, this is great. Like, girls sometimes literally will take photos with their own iPhone, and I'm like, holy shit, like that looks
Mhm.
great. But it's like, if I were to go and take a photo like that, I'm like, that doesn't feel natural, because like when I'm in the bathroom, like literally about to take a shower, like my first instinct is not to like just like lay on the ground and take like a hot photo unless I'm like sending it to someone. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's like I feel like, doing that feels fake, but that doesn't mean that it's fake when someone else does it, because their whole
Yeah.
like their desire and their intention is different than mine. And that's why I feel
Mhm.
like, as long as we just stick to what we really, want to show the world, then I don't think it can be wrong regardless of what it really is.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is your intention. Like if like and that could be a lot of things. That's always gonna at the end of the day, you'll be the one that really knows what you're trying to do. But it's like some people like that's just what they want to do and they're okay with that. And so like but so when I'm looking at people to shoot with like that I want personally for my projects, I like people that have, an attitude in their look or like a little edgy. 'Cause I think that's cool, right? I think one thing I've been trying to do a little bit more, which I'm fun is like getting like the OnlyFans type of content creators, but now putting them in like a turtleneck and a jacket and a hoodie and baggy jeans, like not
Mhm.
that, but bringing them and doing to a whole different environment and seeing what that's like. Because some people, like
Ah,
if you're talking about looks, right, looks good, but there's more to them than just that.
yeah.
And it's not even to do like this like very like empowering kind of thing. It's more like I wonder what this person will look like in this outfit. Like, I
Yeah.
wonder what they can pull off, right?
Yeah.
And
With
so
their
I like for that.
Sorry to cut you off. I
No
thought
worries. Go ahead.
it cut off a little bit. That's why I thought you stopped talking. No, I was just saying, like, I think that would be really cool, because then if they're able to have that confidence and that sass, like while they're doing the OnlyFans kind of content, imagine like how much they can do with this other stuff. Because a lot of
Yeah.
times, like me, for example, who's like literally just dipping my foot in the water, I guess, of modeling, it's like I don't know, I don't have that confidence and that sass and all this stuff that I could get if I was like comfortable with, posting my nudes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But someone who does that and then now is put in this environment where they don't have to do that, but they can still use that same energy is kind of cool. I've never even
Yeah.
thought that.
I mean, like, I think, look at like Beyonce, right? She can put on the most, out like revealing outfit and she's cool. And then she could put on not that and she's still cool. Like,
Mhm.
it just becomes a matter, like, it's like the confidence and the energy you bring to that look, but also how you execute on it.
Yeah. Okay, so another question I had, speaking of
Mhm.
all this stuff, is like, have you seen models kind of like transform, in this new generation, like this new trend that's going on? Like, do you see models that go from one way of wanting to be and then like switching just because they want to follow this trend or want to be more popular or more liked?
Mhm.
Like, do you ever see that change happen at all?
Yeah, there's I won't say anything. I don't know if that's her what she's trying to go for, but there's someone who she was very I think she's super cool, right? Her vibe was like all like hype beast, street style, stuff like that. And I've been following her for like maybe a year or two. And just like the way she approaches it, right? And then there was like maybe a couple months ago, she posted like a thong shot. And I was like, "No, what did you do?" But I'm also like, why am I trying to control what she's doing? Because that's also I don't know why she's doing that. Maybe she wants to. Maybe it's like I don't know her intention. But as like a fan that wants to have my own story, it's kind of like, oh, what? Well, I can imagine why you would do that, but also like, your brand was different.
For sure.
But
I actually heard recently, like it was like little, I think it was a reel that talked about like different tips, like for someone getting into modeling and stuff.
mhm,
And it was like, one thing you don't want to do is like push your own boundaries just because you feel like there this new I guess desire to be liked by different people, or not even just liked,
Mhm.
but sometimes you can get like offers from people. That's one thing that I really have to, keep in my mind, because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, when you're just choosing your photographers and choosing like what kind of vibe you want to go into it, it's easy to be like, okay, this is what I want, this is what's happening. But what if they're like, we're gonna pay you $2,000 if you take your shirt off, like, and it's that can
Yeah,
become hard. So I don't blame anyone, but
yeah,
really it's important to have those little tips in your head before it happens so that you
yeah,
can, you know, be
yeah.
strong. Yes.
No, I think yeah, that's I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, I think, like, at, like, my past jobs, I work with clients, and, we do, like, app marketing, and, like, we knew what we were good at marketing, and sometimes you would get the most rando people, like, "I don't think I can market that," but they're willing to pay, "Okay, let's take this more as a challenge t than it is, like, just not our vibe." But I think for models, like, it depends on how you approach it, I think, like, at the same time, you also have to pay your bills, right? And if you're okay with that, you can get paid, you just don't post about it, or let other people post, you would just like, you control your look. Um, there's
Right.
that. I've known some people who what they said is, whenever the shoot gets like, that's the vibe of the shoot before it even starts, they try to control it a little bit better. So like, "Oh, if you wanna do this, this is where we're gonna shoot. These are, like, my guidelines. We're not doing this, we're not doing this. Like, I'll take my shirt off, but we're not doing A, B, and C. I'm
Mhm.
bringing somebody," like, they put rails on it so they can still
Control it.
keep up the brand they want to keep, no matter where that photo goes, you know?
Wow, that's actually really good advice. So then what would you recommend, like, for someone who is just trying to get into modeling and like wants to monetize their stuff? Because I know that now there's like different ways. In the past it was like you need an agency, you need this. Like, have
Mhm.
you heard of like some kind of different journey people take that they can do this? Because honestly, I've even like I do this for fun as of right now,
Mhm.
at least. Like, I it's a just a self-love type of
Mhm.
project for me. But also I feel like in the future I could see myself using it also to my advantage in terms of like money. So what do you
Yeah.
think is like a way to kind of get started with that?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more on, like, the model end, like, other than just, like, go to an agency and let them get you jobs and then just start an OnlyFans. Like, I feel like I know more about the photography stuff than that side. But I mean, like, so the way I approach photography and, like, even my past jobs, right, doing, like, business development, sometimes you have to kind of bring the fight to people. So if your goal is to be a model, um, one thing that might be worth it is to reach out to people. It's like, hey, let me know if you want to shoot, right? I know there are photographers that are like, if I didn't reach out to you, then I didn't reach out to you, kind of thing. But I think it's more like putting your name out there and like establishing that. One thing I always recommend, it's also why I'm like selective in who I work with, is if you say you want to get into like that type of modeling, right, and you want to kind of show the appeal, but you want to do it in a way that's going to work, I would hire really good photographers that do that type of content. And that way, one, you're working with people that are hopefully not as creepy and know what they're doing, right? And they're going to make you look good. But then when you put that on your page and you're able to establish yourself as a good looking model, well, then you might have other followers that want that same vibe, and they'll reach out to you that then want to charge you for that, versus getting the people that are only collabs and are only going to charge like willing that will pay you like $50 an hour, and they don't have the a budget, right?
Yeah,
Um, that's one thing I would recommend just from a branding standpoint, just 'cause I feel like when I see models that work with the other photographers, the photos look good, I'm like, okay, this person in a way knows what they're doing, they take it seriously. I want that brand in my brand kind of thing.
for sure.
Of course, you're up and coming, you just gotta make it work the way you're gonna work. But I think that's kind of off my head how I can things I would think if I was in the modeling chair.
For sure. No, 100%. And I think right now is a cool time to get into it because it's not like you have to be this exact height, this exact look. Like, I feel
Mhm,
like now is the time where literally, I mean, and maybe because I just see a bunch of stuff on social media of like people wanting to influence you to, do different things with your life. And I think that's really inspiring because I'm like, wow, now people can just like be able to see themselves in these spotlights that we used to like
mhm.
see other people in. Like sometimes when I do a photo shoot, I'm like, wow, like I literally only used to see other girls doing these poses and doing these things, and I would think, oh my god, they're so perfect. And then now when I see myself, I'm like, oh my god, I look
Do the
amazing.
thing, yeah.
And it's like,
100%.
of
Yeah.
course, though, the reason why it has been healing too has been the fact that sometimes you see photos and different like angles that you're like, I don't look hot. Like, I don't look, I realize like you could
Yeah.
either be like, okay, I want to change every single part of my face that, makes me look this way. Or you can realize that our creation wasn't simply to just be hot. Like in certain angles, in certain ways, you're not going to look hot and it's okay.
Yeah.
But then also it kind of makes you like force yourself to like see you in angles that other people see you and you see that okay, certain people like still love me and care about me, so why can't I love all parts of myself? So it really, I do want to put my word out there as like a positive thing like towards modeling and like this industry because it
Mhm.
does have a bad name sometimes because it has been super super horrible for some people, like just super
Yeah.
negative, but you can
Mhm.
also choose, like, how you do it, I think, so.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, like, uh, what stuff I feel like happens, like, now, unfortunately, is, like, not new. 'Cause, like, if you hear, like, old, like, Hollywood stories, like, this stuff has been going on before Facebook and MySpace, right? It's just how the industry was, so it's just more secretive.
Mhm,
Now it's wider scale because there's more people involved, with the same kind of intentions and stuff. But like I said, like, if you the more you can put rails on it and control the situation, the better, right? And I found if you try to control if you're not in control, if you're trying to put up basic boundaries and someone gets mad about that, then that you already know before you even showed up to that room, that guy probably or that they probably aren't that I probably don't want to work with them. Even though their content might be good, I know I get a vibe already and they already can't respect a little boundary. Like, let me bring someone over.
mhm,
I I don't
okay,
know.
how are you gonna be alone with him then, like
Yeah, it's like if you why can't they oh just it kills my process and that. It's like, okay, well, it kills my process. It's just like
yeah, like
there are little ways you can yeah, make you could kind of bring out the venom and realize, oh, that's a snake.
mhm,
But
wow. So, in terms of that though, and, like, all the stuff we've been talking about, how, like, we even did a bikini shoot and stuff, and how honestly, like, it really is about the vibe, how you were saying just now,
mhm,
because you can tell, like, how someone makes you feel, like, in the moment when they're taking the photo, and, like, you can tell, like, what they're focusing on, like,
mhm,
like, how they respect what you feel like when you're doing these things. Like, there's photographers that so there's a difference between, like, doing, like, a back shot and, like, focusing, emphasizing the booty, but then also, like, where you, like, pull the model's skirt and, like, do those things, like,
yeah,
where that's, like, and I'm not hating on that either because, like, I've seen it happen, and I've had that happen actually at a shoot, and it was fine because it was, like, still a friendly vibe at the end of the day, like, I knew that there was nothing going on, but
mhm,
I think that that in particular kind of gives off a different vibe than someone who's like, "Okay, like, let me look pretty on that bench, like, let me take some cute photos of you in your bikini." Like, it's
yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, and I mean, that just comes to reading people, right? Like some people, like I've worked with some people where they're like, "Oh, should I take my shirt off?" I'm like, I mean, if you want, like I'm not gonna. You don't have to do that, but I also, if we do, I can understand how we're gonna work that into like the vibe, right? Versus like someone offers that, and you're like, "Oh, yes, yes, yeah," it's like weird.
Yeah.
Also, you could pick up on it, right? I think some people they because so when I found is like as a photographer, people trust me a lot. Like whether I'm doing weddings or events, like people understand I'm the photographer and they don't know what I know, so they're gonna trust my judgment. But you can use that to, an advantage of, oh, I need to do this for the photo. And you're like, well, I don't know any better, so I guess, right?
Yeah,
But that's how you kind of fill out the vibe. Where you can say, I'm not like it's always gonna be weird to say like I'm not comfortable with that. But it's just one thing as you go, you learn, oh, I just have to do that.
exactly.
But I think like when we did our beach shoot, right? Like we're trying to figure out, okay, well, there's a family right there, how are we just gonna go for it? Are we not gonna go for it? And as we did it, we looked at the shots and like, okay, this clearly shows that that's good, but is it too much in that realm? Is it not? Like my thing is, how do you feel about the photo, right? Like, would you post this on your Instagram? Like, would you be okay showing this to people? If not, then it's probably not a good photo.
You're
Like,
right. No, 100%. And that goes back to intention. Literally everything always does. But
mhm,
it really does specifically here because it's like if you're a model that's doing it for the clout and like because you're like, oh my God, like I want shoots like that people are gonna like, then if a guy, the photographer, is telling you like take your shirt off or like, oh for sure, like acting all excited and weird, you obviously are gonna feel embarrassed and like scared to be like, no, I don't want to. But then
mhm.
if you're doing it simply like for your own self and like because I mean it doesn't always have to be like oh self-love, like I'm not judging other reasons, but I'm
Yeah,
saying if it's like rooted at like I'm doing this for my own truth, then when someone says take your shirt off or when they get all weird and excited, like you're more confident to be like, oh no, because you don't care that like ultimately maybe he won't post this photo of you or
mhm,
whatever. Like I used to care in the past. I used to think it was like a negative thing if like a photographer took photos of me and like didn't post them and I'd be like, oh my God, it's because I acted like too prude. And it's like, no, like they have
yeah,
their own page and their own desires and intentions. Like you're not gonna be getting naked so that they can give you like attention. Like that's
yeah,
not a positive thing.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I get it. I mean, like, yeah, like I think you mentioned, like, in if you do the thing, it's gonna get you attention, and that can be a good or a bad thing depending how you approach it. And there's always gonna be the comments that come with that too, like that people want to be negative. But again, I
Mhm.
think it depends. Like there are some people like that's all they post, and that they work with like 4 people, like all the time, and like those photographers know their vibe. You could tell like there's a friendship there. So like there's a
Mhm.
lot more of a relationship in a good way. Where when you work with someone new and you don't get that, you don't know, right? And, like I've worked with shoots where I've done shoots where I've done like great photos. It's just like, oh, I don't want to post that on my Instagram. I don't want that as like my vibe or my brand, even though it's an attractive shot. Of course, there are shots I've done where I'm like, I did not like this shoot. I am not gonna mention this. I forgot I've done those shoots before. Like
Yeah.
it's just what it is. But at the day, I think that's more the photographer than it is you. You know.
Yeah, there's no point in like being insecure. But also for I just lost my train of thought. But I was gonna say, for like the photography and like all this, have you what would you say is like the craziest story? Like what
The
is has
craziest story.
anything happened that's been like weird, like in the industry at all?
Like, have I had any uncomfortable stories? Like, not
Yeah, like
well,
I don't know. It
well,
randomly came up to mind.
yeah, I mean, like, so there are 2 that really stuck with me and, like, have one that really set the stage for how I approach shoots, and 2 another one for respect, right? So the first one, when I was still, like, very, very new, there was a photographer, in the Bay Area that I met in LA. I thought he was cool because he was, like a big shop photographer, but then 'cause I met him at a meet, then go on his page, and it's clear, like, this guy is, like, like a pre-OnlyFans an OnlyFans photographer, right? But more of a creepy kinda one.
Mhm,
Um, so I happened to run into the guy when I moved and went on a shoot with him. But again, this is before I just had a vibe. I was like, "I'm not gonna judge people." We get to the
mhm,
shoot, and it's there for, like a skateboard company. And I'm there with like the owner of the company, his girlfriend, and then the model and the other photographer. And the photographer's like, "Hey, whatever you do, you're not shooting the model. You're here to like watch what I do. Like, I'm there to shadow him, right? So you're just gonna watch. Don't take pictures of the model." I'm like, "Okay, it's cool, man. Don't trip." So he takes the model and then like walks away to go shoot with her, but he didn't even touch the skateboards. I'm like, "Oh, I thought we were here to shoot skateboards." And so me, I'm like, "Oh, I need to like I should take up this opportunity to shoot the skateboards for the guy. 'Cause that's the point, right?" But as I started realizing, like, wait a minute, why is he not shooting the boards? Oh, he's only here because the model is wearing booty shorts. Like, oh, okay, well, that speaks a lot about you too, right?
mhm,
And so that made me realize like a lot of time people are here just for that, and they kind of forget what the point of of the shoot's supposed to be. The second one, this is where it tripped me out. 'Cause that guy, he's big now still, right? But he was smaller then. I was at a photo workshop with other photographers and model, like the whole setup. And these are probably like bigger IG photographers now, right? And the model is she's wearing a bikini, right? So she has a bikini. We're in like the studio, and we're all around her, trying to like talking about like talking shop and how to do the photo. And one of the guys just kind of, I don't remember what he was saying, but he just slides his finger like onto like the waistband. What do you describe? I don't know what that's called.
yeah, the
Um,
waistband.
the waistband, like his finger, like kind of pulls it up, makes a comment about it, and then just like lets it go, and it snaps. And I was like, "Whoa, that was kinda" like, in my head, like, "Oh, shit," like, he just did that, and I don't know what to do, right? And I look at the model, and, she's looking at him like, "What the fuck?" But then he's just, like, turning to the other guys and just talking to him about, like, nothing happened. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's just him going to the rug, like, that moment is past, but that moment happened."
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
that showed me, like, oh, even whatever level you're at, that's still gonna be a thing. It shouldn't be a thing, but, like,
it is,
you
yeah.
gotta, like, and he probably didn't mean anything by it realistically, right? But it doesn't excuse it. But if you call that guy, I'd be like, "Oh, what?" You know? It's like,
Yeah,
"Ah, you
no, I
can't do
think
that."
like,
Yeah.
wow, no, for sure, and I think this is, like, the reason why there's, like, a stigma around this, like, oh, there's a lot of, reasons, obviously, but
Yeah.
because, like, you're seeing people in such vulnerable states, like, I've noticed, like, when I take photos, like, channeling this part of me that's, like, not that I don't channel that much because like I'm not sitting there like all vulnerable like everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Like when you're with a photographer, like they're taking shots of you like doing different things. So it's very easy. I feel like if someone has bad intentions to like push those boundaries in those times because you're
Mhm.
just there and you both obviously are there for like your own benefit, and so they can like use that against you. But
Mhm.
I think it's good though that you're talking about it because it shows like, someone's gonna listen to this and maybe they're gonna have a negative idea about photography and like just like getting into it with modeling. Then they're gonna be
Mhm.
like, wait, there's people in the industry that look out for others and like they do see the
Yeah.
negatives. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation. But
Yeah,
what
for sure.
about posing? Because I like when I go into shoots, I have my idea and I'm so excited. I literally had one yesterday with Kappa Photography. Shout out to her. She's a great
Oh, Ashley. Yeah.
yeah, Ashley. But she, I was gonna say that like, I did, it went really, really well. But when I got there, in my head, I was like, oh my god, I didn't like think of like different poses I want to do,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's important, right? Like, what do you suggest when you before you go to a shoot, like? Should you be looking up like different poses, different ideas? Because I always feel stuck in the beginning and then towards the end I get really good ones going. But then I'm like, I wasted 30 minutes. Like if I
Yeah.
had a clue going into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, you're always gonna be in a good position if you prepare a little bit more. Of course, you don't have to. You could just DJ it, but it's kind of like for like what I do with sometimes like my shoots is where I used to do a lot more in the beginning was I mean I'm on Instagram all the time, right? And I'm just saving photos into folders here and there. And I would just kind of for fun go back to those old folders and just relook at photos. And like, oh, I like that shot a lot. I like that pose. I want to do that photo. Right. And I go on a shoot where I'm like, hey, can you do exactly this? And we
Yeah.
don't actually get it, but sometimes we do. But in trying to channel that, it gives you a better sense of direction.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also good to just have like, like every photographer has probably like 3 or 4 go-to poses in their back pocket. You can probably do as a model, right? And there's like ones where you just like hands on hips, like hands on head, lean against the wall, leans like that. Like you can find something. My go-to pose is always like, I can see it, right? Kind of like that,
Oh
like
yeah.
chin up, well, I'm a lower from the camera, but it's like
Yeah.
doing that. Like I like that, like Steve Jobsy kind of like thinking pose. Um, but of course, I'll do a shoot. We'll check off that box within 5 minutes, and now we need new poses. And
Mhm.
so I think it's a matter of if you're going to a shoot and if you know what you're like the vibe of the shoot, look up poses and like not even poses, but just look up photos in that vibe so you can see stuff. But then when you're there, you also have to kind of jazz it a bit. So you're gonna have to figure, okay, I know the 5 poses. Let me do one pose. Okay, let me just change the arm. Okay, let me just
Yeah.
hands on head. And like those might look cliche and you might not even use them, but in moving, you might get something, right? And that's kind of the goal. The shoot I did today, she had like I don't know the short like shorts, but they're like designer shorts, but look like boy gym shorts, and then like this button up, right? And then like these nice like designer boots. It's like, oh, you look sporty. Can you just like stretch? Like pretend you're stretching your leg. Kind of put your leg up and like pretend you're tying your shoe because it looks sporty. And I know that based off the vibe of the outfit right now,
Yeah.
right? And so that's something you could do. But I think when you're the model, at least one thing I always wish is don't just rely on the photographer, especially when like it's a newer photographer because they probably don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to direct. A lot of photographers will just their direction is oh, can you do something that looks sexy? Can you do something that looks cool? Can you do something that looks, and like
Uh,
generic kind of vibes, which they probably mean, but they don't know how to like
portray
translate.
what they want, yeah.
So for you, it's like, okay, let me do one of my go-to poses, or let me try to do something cool. And then let me just do my own thing. Hands to the pockets, like play with the outfit, pretend you're adjusting, like, don't even look at the camera, right? Look up, like find things to do. And that way you just kind of warm up your body and then start to find things. And the photographer's good, they'll say, stop that whatever you just did like 5 seconds ago, go back and do that. And then that's how you guys have something more specific to work towards.
For sure.
Mhm.
Nice. So, okay, because I get really stressed out by planning. For some reason, I know most people
Yeah.
like you fail to plan, plan to fail kind of thing. I'm like the opposite. I feel
Yeah.
like if I
Yeah.
plan,
And then you
I'm
plan
like
it all and it doesn't work out.
fail.
Yeah.
But, I I think it's important, like, as I go on through life, I'm realizing, it's like when you go into something and you have an idea of like how you want it to go, and no expectations, of course, because
Mhm.
nothing ever turns out the way you expect it. But I think that is important. I think it's just like overall, that's why I'm glad that I have this podcast because I feel like there's so many little things that I think about, like even just with like, photo shoots or like just my day-to-day life. And it's
Mhm.
cool to like bring those thoughts to life and like
Mhm.
actually talk about them because,
Mhm.
I really have I either see people like trying to be models and like or being really good at it and stuff, or people talking shit about it. Like there's no in
Yeah.
between. There's like
Yeah.
so
Mhm. Yeah, there's noise out there for sure, and there's always gonna be crabs that are gonna try to, pull you back down. That's just the nature of life. It's not even photography and model. That's just like a thing, right? And you're like, "What?
yeah, it's
Why are
with
you doing
everything.
that?" Yeah.
Do you also because here in San Diego and in California in general, and just like places with a lot of beautiful girls in general, there's a lot of like expectations on beauty, and I just don't know if you see that a lot with girls like where they're beautiful, you see them be beautiful, you take photos of them looking stunning, and then they still like feel like they need to change themselves and stuff, which I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with
Mhm.
getting plastic surgery. I just want to kind of see from your point of view if you can tell from the mindset of like, models and like how they talk about it or how they, interpret like beauty and whether they think we need to be a certain way to be in this industry.
Well, yeah. So there's different ways you can take that. Like industry wise, there's definitely going to be check boxes that people want you to meet. Like there's a Rebecca Slaughter, is really great photographer, really great person. Rebecca Slaughter. How she talked about it, she's a photographer now, but she tried to do modeling, and they told her, "Oh, you're too short. You're just the way you are is not modeling." But you look at her like, "What? She's great." And now she's actually modeling because she's pulled her own system together. And now she controls that. But that was one of her stories, so that's how she got into photography. Um, but I think like if you want to like appease those people to get the job, then do it. That's if you want to do it because you understand what they're asking for. But like any relationship, if you guys aren't on the same page, then you don't have to be in that relationship. But
Oh,
it just
such a
matters.
good point.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, if you wanna compromise for that, then go for it, but, like, you understand you are the one compromising. But of
exactly.
course, you get someone that's probably, like, super big, and now they have the power to say, "No, you're gonna compromise for me." Um, so there's that part, but then, like, on a personal level, it's a personal thing, right? Like, there are times where I'm like, "I'm too skinny, I'm too short, this and that." But then some days I'll just feel good, and I'll look in the mirror, I'm like, "Damn, I look like a man, good job, me." And the next day I'm like, "God, look at me again," you know?
No,
Um,
me too.
you
I resonate.
and so I think it just comes to like how you view yourself, and if you're not that image, being okay with that too. Like I think like I don't know. At the end of the day, it's kind of like it's whatever makes you happy, you know. Like Holly Sanders is a model, and I think she's had a lot of plastic surgery, and she's like, yeah, like this is what I want to do. Why do you get to decide how I want to control
Exactly.
my body? I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I can't really say anything to that.
You can't judge it because it's like, dude, she's right. Like, why are my ideas of beauty and like my desires to accept certain things, like, why should they be put on someone else who thinks that they look much better and also can like succeed much bigger things doing this other way? And that's totally fine. But I totally agree. Totally, totally, totally. I agree with what you said a lot because I think the whole like relationship and all of that, like I really resonate with it because I think that's what's important. It's like think about the result. Like if you think it is worth it and like you think you could vibe with those people who are making you change and be a certain way, then like fucking do
Yeah,
it. But then if you're like, okay, I'm gonna do all of these things so I could reach this goal of being a certain way with these people, but then being with them is gonna make me feel miserable and like being accepted by them is gonna make me
yeah,
feel like shit, then why even go through the hardship?
yeah,
But one thing that I do wanna say for whoever's listening, it's like one thing that I noticed with like, I just with social media being like a huge thing now, even after COVID, like I feel like it's even more influenced. But this desire to like for features to be like similar amongst everyone, like
yeah,
because bigger lips are like the ideal, then everyone should have bigger lips, otherwise they're not like beautiful. I'm not saying everyone thinks this way, but like this
yeah,
whole beauty standard or like noses, it's like if why can't it be where like someone who is beautiful could have a bigger nose and then that could make like in your head subconsciously throughout time we could realize like okay, people who are beautiful could have this feature that isn't like the ideal of like beauty standards, but that's what makes that feature beautiful because it's on them, like it's on the beautiful person. But
mhm,
instead now we're making it into this paradigm of like because we have features that aren't perfect, then that's making us ugly and we should fit the standard by changing those features. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be
yeah,
that way. Obviously, that can be that way and it's totally acceptable, but like, it doesn't have to be. That's all I ever preach. Like, even
yeah,
just with everything, I feel like I sometimes get, uh, people who like will message me or talk to me and they'll think that I'm like against certain things or like whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm really not. I just am trying to make it so that other people aren't against like this way that it's always been. Like
yeah.
it's, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean that's like that translates into like music and any type of art or anything you do. Like like it's always there's always many people that want you to change, right? But more in not change, conform. That's where it's changing, but you're conforming, right? Because that's what you do. And there's some people who genuinely believe in that, and that's that you can't change that. There's some people who it's easier to go with the majority, and they're probably scared themselves, but they're projecting onto you, and that makes you conform. They're gonna be the people that just don't care, and there's the punks over there just being punks, and that's that. By punk rock is punk rock.
Yeah.
Um, it depends which crowd you hang out with, and of course, like the coolest punks are the people that you know make everything happen, and they don't listen to anyone, right? And like I think Rihanna is like a cool person. Like
I
she's
love
very punk, but she's not punk, but she's totally punk, right? And no one can tell Rihanna anything because that's who she is.
it.
Um, ASAP Ferg I feel is also very like punk, but he's like not. And no, there's people that like no matter what you tell them, they're gonna keep kind of driving ahead, and people are gonna still follow them because they're them, and that's what makes them them. You know?
For sure.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for just all your
Yeah.
insight. Is there a last minute, like, little message you want to give? I feel like this was a really good way to end it because, we just talked about something that I'm extremely, like, I don't know, passionate about. And I feel like I hear about it a lot and it kind of makes me be doubtful of myself. And it's nice to hear someone else who, has their insight on it and like a different perspective, but also agrees ultimately. So.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, definitely our conversations around like accepting yourself and what you're okay with. I think what I found is people are always going to be who they are at the end of the day. And I
Mhm.
think it's a matter of one swallowing the hard pill that you can't change people. Like you can, right? People can change, but it can be hard. And some people make it harder when they don't need to. And so it's kind of like if you feel a certain way, whether it's like you're angry, or you're annoyed, or you're hurt, or you're very passionate about something,
Mhm.
your feelings are still your feelings, right? If someone's like, you shouldn't feel that way, it's like, well, I still feel that way. It's not gonna make me not sad, not angry.
Mhm.
Um, even if like once you start to understand why you're angry, okay, maybe that wasn't right of me. Now I understand perspective. But at that point, my feeling was still my feeling. And I think a lot of people will try to like invalidate that. Like if you're feeling uncomfortable or you're not cool with something, and they'll try to gaslight you to you're the bad one, you're the one making this harder. Um, Watch out for that. But those people are never going to go away. That's my thing. Those people never go away, and so it's less a matter of when you see something or feel something right away. Uh, I guess don't get mad that that's a thing. But I mean, my thing is, I will get mad at myself when I don't do something about that,
Mhm.
right? And so it's more or less about, oh, this person, cut me in line. It's less more about, it's okay to cut me because that's just who they are. It's not personal. But I'm mad that I didn't say, hey, you cut me,
Yeah, like, you're
you
mad
know,
at yourself, yeah.
right? And so I think it's a matter of like whether you're on the photography side or the model side, there's going to be rude models and there's going to be very rude photographers. And I think that's the nature of, cycling through people and learning. But
Mhm.
once you find someone that sticks, you should continue to work with them as much as you can because they're going to have better intentions for you. And as a result, you're both going to grow as when it comes to that.
Oh, this is also an amazing point because it's literally it reminds me of this, idea that you can't it's like you only have control over, like, what you do. So if you make your mistakes, let's say, and you know that they're mistakes in terms of, like, I don't believe anything is really a mistake, but meaning like a choice that you know is negative and it's going to have a negative impact on you. I've heard someone say that they were like, You should never regret quote unquote mistakes, but when you usually regret them is when you know they were wrong, when you were doing them." So to
Yeah.
relate it to this, like the reason I thought about it honestly was because like you yourself will know what's like a good thing to do in terms of like this industry too, like which shoot you should do or which model or yeah, or photography you should work with. And when you
Yeah.
have that gut feeling that's like, oh, I'm doing this because of my ego, or like I'm doing
Yeah.
this because they're making me, the only time you'll regret it, I feel like, is if you do it when you already knew that it was going to be something that you shouldn't be doing. But
Yeah.
like, if you're doing it and you had no idea and someone like really like catches you off guard, like don't sweat it. But I feel like it's
Yeah.
important to just like think about it before you even do it. There's been many times that I've been so flaky just because I've honestly not felt very good about like doing something, in terms of like a shoot or something. And then I honestly have felt better later. Like, good
Yeah.
thing I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Your gut. What I was like, one that was taught to me is your gut's kind of the faster brain. And so when your gut says something, there's a reason why you have anxiety, or there's a reason why your gut feels like it's dropping.
Mhm.
Um, and if you just like said, if someone was to ask you, well, why do you feel that way? And you were just very to the point, I feel like this person's weird. Like that's just how your body's reacting. There's something to that, right? It's not like you're just making this up and you're trying to gaslight yourself into not being annoying or making mess being a stick in the mud or something, right? It's like, okay, what is it about the situation that made me weird? Okay, well, the way, just the vibe, it's like it's not a vibe because there's a lot of clues that you're seeing and recognizing. Okay, you're onto something, right? And of course, things can also come from misunderstandings, and that's why being direct and talking about it and trying to address it helps way.
Mhm.
Um, but like you said, don't. y- There's nothing wrong. Like you shouldn't be ashamed for being ignorant.
Yeah.
I think if you don't know something, you just don't know something. But like you said, if you were aware this probably wasn't cool to do and you did it with like, well, there's 90% chance it might be fine. Well, yeah, now you should be accountable for your decision because you had the data in front of you. We're like in your head, but
100%.
not everyone's like that. They'll make the mistake and then they'll still try to weasel out of it, and that's
Yeah,
yeah,
can't
you know,
you can't take shortcuts. I realized that recently, like, you can't you gotta take
yeah,
accountability for your shit and just move on. Well, thank
yeah,
you so much, dude. I appreciate you being here, and I'm excited for more conversations to come. I love, like, literally just talking about things and seeing how they play out, and I feel like with this conversation, I had no idea how it would, and now I'm very happy about
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Thanks
for sure,
so
of
much.
course,
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you got something out of it because I definitely did, and I honestly will walk away way more wise in this game. Have a good night.
see everybody.
See you.